I feel like I need to share my thoughts on the recent Charlie Kirk situation. Um, obviously, I say obviously, it should be obvious that it's terrible, tragic news that somebody was murdered simply for having their own beliefs and speaking those beliefs out loud. Um, but I found myself less shocked by the murder of this individual and more shocked by the online response to it. Now, just for context, I disagree with a lot of things that Charlie Kirk would himself claim to believe in. I agree with some of the things that he spoke about. Um, but either way, his methodology of open discourse and debate was probably the ideal way that any two opposing ideas can come together. After all, debate is the expression of thoughts and ideas and beliefs, and to try to persuade or dissuade people from opposing ideas. And in a perfect scenario, people leave agreeing entirely, and in a realistic scenario, people um, agree to disagree. But seeing how much people online have celebrated his death, they not even celebrate his death because there are those that are like that, and there always will be those that like that. But it's those who seem so desensitized to the reality of what's happened, and the world's full of doom and naysaying, and doom scrolling is very much a common thing, rage baiting. But some people seem to almost justify it by saying, oh, you know, sad that it happened, but he did this, he did that, he spewed hate, he was divisive. Even if he was, that doesn't merit violence or ultimately murder. You're talking about a very inhuman thing to do, to take the words of what somebody else is saying and deem them valid to murder that person. Now, another thing that keeps happening as well, I keep seeing whataboutisms. Oh, but what about what he said about Gazans, and what about this, and what about that? That's irrelevant. Because everybody has opinions, and everybody who express those opinions, they're not directly involved. And even if another person celebrates the death of another person, it still doesn't merit the death of that person. Otherwise, you are a hypocrite if that's the case. And it's not quite fair to compare a war torn part of the world, which is devastating, by the way. There's no two ways about it. But we desensitize ourselves to it because it is on the other side of the world, and we cannot. It's not physically possible for us to feel the emotions of every single life lost. And we're comparing it to a peacetime, democratic, open platform of conversation and ideas at a college campus, a murder. They're not comparable. So, and what aboutisms will go on forever? Because what about the people who are dying in Gaza? Then what about the people who are dying in other tribalistic warfares that are happening in small settlements on the African continent? What about the deaths to drug gangs and cartels? What about? You end up going on and on and on and on. It, I just had to say something because it's kind of shocking to me. I'm an atheist. Um, like I said, I disagree with a lot of what Charlie said. I agreed with some of what he said. My algorithm probably thinks I'm far right and far left at the same time because I like to listen to all ideas across the political spectrum, ideological spectrum, and come up with my own deductions and opinions. But it seems to me that it blows my mind actually, because as a young man, I would have said that the right was more inherently drawn towards violence for resolution. But maybe that's just a bias that's built into us through the liberal nature of what education is. prospect of advancing new ideas. But this idea, like, it seems to me that the far left, which is what it is, it's the far left, are hijacking the left as a whole, which is kind of like what happened in Nazi Germany with the far right. The far right hijacked the right movement. And the far left is doing a lot of what they are claiming the right as a whole is doing. And there's a massive problem with the devaluing of words. People throwing around Nazi, fascist, communist. It goes both ways. But the most popular term being thrown around a lot these days is Nazi or fascist. When there's no direct comparison. It's like the word has lost all meaning. I've seen that Charlie Kirk's been called a fascist. The very thing of what he did is anti-fascist, like opening a platform for discussion of ideas. Fascism is to shut down opposing forces, opposing ideas. He wasn't a nationalist. He wasn't ultra nationalist. And even if you was to go down the route of saying, hey, he's far right, he's still not a fascist. He's still not a Nazi. He's just traditionally right wing. Which again, like, I'm not right wing, but guess what? Like, people generally sit on two sides of the fence. You can't say 50% of the human race are this way inclined because you disagree with their ideas. It just blows my mind. Maybe it's because I don't know, I'm autistic, so maybe I like order and understanding in the world around me. I like to use data sets to come up with probable outcomes and factual evidence truths. But I just can't understand this also almost sociopathic, borderline psychopathic nature online of people towards the death of a person. Like, I cried when I saw a video of his daughter running up to him going, "Daddy," like, as a father of three kids. Like, I could not hold back my empathy. And I would expect at the very least sympathy from people, even if they don't have children. But there are people with children who are still celebrating this man's death like he was responsible for 80 million people killed in a world war. Like, it just blows my mind. Um, it's actually tormenting the very being of who I am. To be honest, it leaves me disillusioned. I'm typically a glass half full kind of person. I used to hate that term when I was younger, but I've come to the realization that I'm quite a positive minded person. But I see so much rhetoric coming out of media and social media. Social media probably worse. Social media, new media, acts like it's a level above what traditional media is. Oh, the news always lies, and the news incites this, the news incites that, and it has been. CNN, MSNBC, and on the other side of things, Fox News, but not so much, will throw out slurs and slanderous statements like calling Trump a Nazi and a fascist, which just it is not true. Even if he showed signs of it, he just isn't. They still have a clear democracy in place. And that's a whole different thing anyway. But social media, new media is arguably worse. It's this endless supply of algorithm fed divisive content. Like, my YouTube feed 1 minute is saying Charlie Kirk destroys pro-trans person, absolutely abolishes this person, and it's all hyperbole around, like, it's almost like WWE or something. Like, it's so over the top because, and it goes the other way as well. Like, trans liberal destroys Charlie Kirk, or it just blows my mind. Like, Constant Kissing, he's quite grounded, he's quite centered, and I have to admit, I really respect the content he does and the way he articulates himself and the way he carries himself emotionally. But he said it in response to the Charlie Kirk assassination, that he feels it's like a 9/11 moment. And that was how I felt, like, instinctively. I didn't think of it directly as that as an analogy, but it felt like such a significant moment. I know I'm probably rambling to at best like 10 people, but I see it online on like Discord, on WhatsApp. So much rage baiting. There's so much casual use of hateful, aggressive, violent rhetoric, and I mean not the ever blurred line of what banter is. You know, like you get in online gaming, there's a fine line between banter and actual bullying and nastiness. Um, just straight up degradation of social values, which go back. I mean, go back to the 90s, and a lot of bad stuff is still happening, and has always still happened across the history of the human race. But I feel like the 90s was so much more balanced with how we were approaching racism, homosexuality, all these pressing topics which are still prevalent today. And now it's almost gone full circle and it's getting worse again. Because when you start pushing so much baseless absolutism towards a whole group or demographic, you inevitably push people in that direction anyway. You create the monster, you bring it into reality. If it doesn't exist, you are making it happen. Like inevitably there will come a point where, I mean, I've seen some people say, hey, I'm now, I was an atheist, and now after Charlie Kirk's death, I'm going to go to church for the first time and seek God, right? I'm an atheist, there's nothing against anyone doing that, but it's just an example of how you're pushing people into the direction that you're arguing to get people out of. You're creating racists by saying everybody's a racist. If somebody looks at someone a certain way and they're a man and the other person's a woman, and that they feel like they're being like assaulted by an imaginary perception of what's happening, then you're creating more men who are going to perceive women in a negative way because of false claims or false victimhood in different situations. And real problems happen. Racism really does happen. Homophobia really does happen. And it's a serious issue in the situations and circumstances that it happens. But for as long as I've been alive in my life, we're chasing a solution like it can be magically erased entirely within our lifetimes. Like forcing through some aggressive, rapid fire fix. And like that's going to work. And a lot of people do it with good intentions, but I'm seeing more and more people do it because they think it's the right thing to do based on what other people say is the right thing to do. And I think a lot of this like pro negativity that comes with the response to Charlie Kirk, like, oh, he deserved it, or he had it coming, or but this, but that, but he said this, but he said that. That comes from the fact that people are now looking to just try and be on the right side of history. Hey, I was pro Black Lives Matter because, that's what everyone said was good, right? And, all police are bad, right? All police are racist. And then they jump on that bandwagon. And then they put their bio as a little black flag for solidarity. And all these people, I think they mean well to begin with. And then they're just trying to catch up and keep up with what they think is the right thing to do. And then it becomes almost like a desensitization to their own feelings. I mean, I'm massively going off topic here, but to bring it full circle, there are people out there celebrating, or at least justifying, the murder of a man at a college campus, just sharing his ideas. You can dislike the man, you can like the man, you can love the man, you can hate the man. It doesn't justify it leading to physical harm and then ultimately murder. Like I feel a bit traumatized. I stumbled across a video on a YouTube short because that's again just the world of the algorithm, and I saw footage of it happening. And I don't like violence. I might play my video games which have violence in it. I might watch movies which have violence in it, but my brain can disassociate between the two because one's reality and one's fiction. But seeing what I saw online, it made me feel sick. Not just because of what happened, but then knowing that these young children have lost their dad. and people lose their parents all the time, and people lose their children all the time. But this is obviously a singular moment that's at the forefront of the media, a face who is at the forefront of, say, YouTube's recommended page regarding the ever growing, ever monetized political discourse that is happening. And I don't know, I'm just rambling at this point. I'm just saying this because I just needed to get my thoughts out. I needed to say this to someone, even if it's the ether out there, because it's hard having this kind of conversation with people in and around your life. Because again, people can be so strongly leaning in one direction or the other, and to the point of almost disownership. And also, rightly so, people close in your life maybe just don't want to have to deal with the emotional weight of what this constant rhetoric and constant negativity that comes offline brings. I can't turn off. Like I've tried, but I just can't. I'm constantly looking for some positivity. But I guess I'll just say this bottom line: just try and be kind to one another. It's not just try and be kind. Just have good manners and be kind. If everybody just strive for that, maybe we'll have a little bit more civil discourse, a little bit more civility. Who knows? But anyway, peace out.